Hi everyone, Ross here. I hope you're coming from the other video, and if you haven't seen it, make sure you check out video 2, What are exponents, in case you're not really ready to know how I'm talking about and writing out exponents. And in this video, we're going to go over how exponents are represented as you move up in math. So this might get introduced in your first pre-algebra class, your first algebra class, and so it's really helpful to know this if you need to take geometry, algebra 2, pre-calculus, statistics, calculus, and anything past calculus. So let's go ahead and get to how things are represented or written in algebra. So okay, here we have a little statement, and so hopefully if you're feeling a little lost, make sure you go check out that second video on the series, What are exponents? Okay, so here we have a couple statements, and this is just to make sure we're ready for this example. And so we're going to learn really much through the example. We're going to do the big bonus example from last video, a couple examples right beforehand. So here you can write the general form of any exponent as a base number, b, or some people use a, to the power x, or a number b to the exponent x, or the number a to the index x, so you see how it all works the same. So in algebra, we tend to think about a number and the properties of that number, or like that type of number. So we talk about like real numbers, and real numbers include whole numbers, they include negative numbers like integers, they include fractions and decimals and all that sort of good stuff. So we stop talking so much about like one number. What does 2 do when you raise it to a power? And we talk more about what does any number do when you raise it to a power. So that's sort of the difference. And algebra as a word just means like structure or rules or method of how you do all these operations. So there's that. So like for instance, we start to say stuff like, what's a squared times a cubed? So this is our example here before we get into the big one. And so you'd say, oh, well, if I know how exponents work, so if you don't, go check that other video, they just add, right? This is saying the same thing as a times a, and then times a times a times a. So these are the two expansions, and you'd say, oh, well, that's just a. Oh, that's not an a. A to the 5th. That's supposed to be a 5. Let's just go ahead and rewrite that. So a to the 5th. We start doing stuff like this. Okay, let's do one more small example before we get into the just sort of what a story problem or a word problem might look like. And a way you might talk about it in real life, right? At least if you're using all the symbolic stuff. So let's say the letter you're going to use is y. So we might say, what's y to the x times y squared? So remember, x is just a number. So y is still the base for both. So you say, well, what's the base? And how do exponents work when you're multiplying normally? Well, you just add them. So x is just some number, and you add 2 to it, and that's your answer. And that's all you can do. So just sort of a pre-algebra, algebra thing. You're right. So you just say, what's the base? So it's kind of, what's the base here? So is it a? Is it y? Is it 2? Is it 10? What are the exponents? And then am I multiplying? Okay, they just add. Whether they're negative or positive, you just add them up. Are you dividing? You subtract them. So all the regular addition and subtraction rules apply. You just have to make sure you know what to do. And if you don't, go learn. Go ask someone for help. So let's go ahead now and get into the big example. So that would be, let C be a placeholder for a number bigger than 0, so a positive number. Simplify these two expressions, and that would be c to the 7th power divided by c squared, and c cubed divided by c to the 5th power. So in just a moment, we're going to go over, over that. So make sure you might take a pause here and think about, okay, what's the base? Am I doing multiplication and division? And how do I handle that? How do I write that in terms of addition and subtraction of exponents? Okay, so take a moment, and then we'll get to it. So in math, we use a lot of placeholders or symbols, but we're always talking about numbers. So in this example, I want you to think about choosing the letter C to be a placeholder for some number. Let's say some positive number. So let's go ahead and evaluate or simplify these two fractions. So the first one is c to the 7th over c squared. So the idea here is I just want to go over that subtraction aspect of exponents. So when you're dividing, you're actually subtracting exponents. So it'd be 7 minus 2. And then you say, what's the number? Now it's c to the 5th power. And if it's positive, you're done. So that's one way to do it, to move everything into the numerator. Another way it would have been to say it's c7 times c to the negative 2. And then you're adding the numbers, but one of them is negative. So you get c to the 5th still. Okay, so let's make sure. Okay, we know it's c cubed over c to the 5th. So here we can do the same thing. We can either say it's, a negative power, or we can just solely do the subtraction. But there's kind of another way, and that is to put things where the bigger number is. So I'm kind of showing two things at once here. So some people would say, well, let's move everything where the bigger number is. Well, if you're changing the side something is on in a fraction sign for exponents, you're subtracting. So that's kind of, or you can think about it as like, oh, if this was 2 cubed and 2 to the 5th, I'm dividing all those 2's out. So let's go ahead and showcase that. Okay, so this is c times c times c, and then we have 5 of them. And so you can say, well, this one has to divide that to 1. These have to divide to 1. And these have to divide to 1. And then you get 1 over c squared. Likewise, if you're looking at the second form, you're going to get c to the negative squared power. But we usually like to write things in terms of positive exponents. So a negative exponent means you're really dividing. So that should have been 1 over c squared. So those are my examples, and I hope it's clear all the many ways you can work with exponents, and that they're really just multiplication and division. Okay, so now that we've gone over that example, I hope it's clear that when you're dealing with exponents, whether you're doing, the basics, there's just all numbers, no abstractions like in algebra or calculus or anything like that. You just have to know, okay, am I multiplying? Am I dividing? Do I need to evaluate my exponent first and then add and subtract two numbers? Just what are you doing? And then if you're, working with algebra or algebraic representations, you have to really focus on what's the base number? What am I doing? Am I multiplying or dividing? Okay, well, what do I do with the exponents? And as you move on up and up, it's going to start saying, well, what happens when you add or subtract things that have different bases? Or what happens when you want to write things in terms of exponents? Can you change everything to a common base? And that's something that'll come up as you learn more and more. So, all right. Thank you for joining us. I hope you liked that video and found something useful. If you want to know when the next video comes out, don't forget to hit the subscribe and bell icon. And as always, we'd love to see some comments down below, just which topics in math and science. I prefer physics, but science is good that you want to see more videos about or that you're currently struggling with. We'd love to hear what you're interested in or working on. And we hope to see you in the next one. Bye.